and welcome to Painters Motivating Painters Reviews, where we bring you the early Christmas gift of constructive feedback on your miniatures. It's a fairly short video this month on account of it being only the 1st of November. Got 9 really amazing submissions, so we may as well just get straight into them. First off is from Alexis Benair with another bust from Spain, or from Spyro Mirabilis. Actually, I don't know if they're Spanish or not, whatever. And the first backdrop, hope you like it. Yeah, this is it's like amazing, to be honest with you. I was just looking at it again, and the amount of gorgeous little details in there between her dirty fingernails and like the way you've got that fire, like it sounds like reflecting up onto the underneath of her, and her fingers are glowing from underneath. It's absolutely stunning. I love the embroidery on her clothes and like the pattern freehand on that gorge stuff she's got. And I think one of my favorite things is the way her eyes like stand out so much. Like she's got these kind of like little tiny squinty eyes, but they're like bright and like have like a real like character to them. And I think it's really great considering how much other stuff you have going on as well. Hair looks great as well, and her little beaky friend. The backdrop kind of confused me for a good while because of the photos. You know, obviously everything is flat, so I thought that this kind of like gouged out piece of wood that's in the background that was like painted on, and I was trying to figure out what was going on. I was like, is it the shadow of the crow? And then because like her arm is up like this and it's kind of like mirroring it, I was like, is it like her shadow or what? And then it wasn't until I like flicked it around and saw the video, I was like, oh, that's like it's like the wood that the backdrop is made of has this kind of like texture, like natural edge to it there, um, which is kind of cool. But for the purposes of photos, I think it's kind of confusing because when you do a backdrop, you're telling us this is the world behind her. Yeah, it's not physically there. Whereas this is like it looks a little bit like there's a wall behind her, like she's in a caravan and she has this painted wall to make it look like she's outside, rather than her actually being inside. Uh, I don't know. It might just be a personal taste thing. I think the painting on the backdrop is pretty good. I don't think it's as good as the painting on the figure itself, but I don't think it really should be. The main focus should be the figure, and that's just like giving us this nice autumnal kind of scene. I think the plinth she's on looks great, and like the whole like display for her and everything. Um, but I'm not sure that the kind of textured wood finish is adding to it. But again, that could be because we're looking at a 2D photo of it as opposed to when it's in your hand. You know what I mean? But like it's a stunning piece overall. I absolutely love it. Jim, you want to add anything on there?
Yeah, I agree hugely. I mean, it's the model itself is beautifully painted. I love the reflections, the textures, the contrast, everything. As Matt said, it's all beautiful, but I have to agree with that great big slash that's going through the piece of wood. I'm just looking at the video here now, and it's a lot more evident what it is, and I think you just don't need it there. I'll just next time just go for a flat, simple thing, because when you look at it from here, it's just, is it smoke? Is it foliage? As Matt said, I also find it confusing. Um, so things that I really enjoyed, like this, the reflection in the apron is beautifully stunning. The jewelry, the way that's all separated, picked out, highlighted. These trinkets that she's got on her, the terracotta pot that's on the back with I think that's like free-handed pattern on there. I think that all sells. The lines are a little bit wavy, but again, that might be the picture because they're like nice and crisp at the top, but then these bottom ones seem to waver around a little bit. It's around the back of the model, doesn't really matter too much, but piece of this quality needs really, really, nitpicky feedback. So please take that in the best way it's intended. One thing I did think was a little bit off was the green tones in the skin on the lower half of her face. I get that you'd kind of want to make it look a little bit sickly, but I think you may have overcooked it just a shade. Keep those sort of tones for like half shadowy areas, so you've got really nice natural skin tones like around the eyes, and then it just goes like a little bit on too far into the green spectrum, I think, or it's just too much of it. If smaller area was this green, I think it would sell better, and then reserve this like um, ordinary Caucasian tone like for around her sort of jowls, which are obviously a bit old and weathered now, so they could be a little bit ruddier in tone. And then perhaps a little bit more redness in the nose and ears was the only other thing that I really thought you could go with. And then the only other thing, improvement wise, I think was this highlight on the hand. That's a very bright red highlight, but it's on the thumb here, but it's facing away from the actual source of the light. So I don't think you need that level, that height of highlight coming. That should all just be like a, the ambient light coming down on top of the thumb, I think, from the angle. So the rest of it is just absolutely beautiful. It sort of makes sense on this side where you've got it highlighted a bit brighter, but I just think on that thumb you didn't really need that on there because it's facing away. But other than that, stunning once again, Alexis. So thank you very much for sharing, and we look forward to seeing more next month. Okay, moving on to Patrick with another Whiz Kids Beast. And apparently, I've not painted one, so I can't comment really, but it won't stick. They prime with horrible mold lines, blah. So everything comes with mold lines. I don't know how far on you are with your painting hobby, Patrick, but like cleaning up mold lines is standard for anything really. Anything that's been injection molded or 3D printed, they all require differing levels of cleanup. So, scraping off mold lines, filing stuff back, filling gaps, it's all just part of the process. So, don't hold Wiz kids responsible for that. That's just perfectly normal. Back edge of a hobby knife gets them off nicely. Citadel make obviously a mold remover tool. Pretty standard, really. I don't know why your paint wouldn't stick if it's primed properly. Again, I'm sorry if I'm teaching you how to suck eggs here, but make sure you're using the proper kind of primer. It's at the right temperature. It's not too humid outside or cold, or indeed inside if you're spraying inside. Um, but yeah, these are all challenges that should just be overcome, by using your tools properly. So you're saying this has been clean and prepped. Comments welcome. So like painting wise, as I said before, it just looks like cleanup. You've got some like burrs and edges on there. So just again, just tidying stuff up. And then for the model itself, I mean, there isn't much to critique really. It's kind of flat grey with some white bits. So practice volumetric highlighting. So picking out different tones for different sides of each part of the muscle structure, which ones would be in shadow and which ones would be highlighted. The photo's telling you where the highlights need to be anyway, so this is a great reference picture here. Boom, like that. There's your picture, and then you put that paintbrush to it again, and you paint these highlights where they are, and that will make it look brilliant. But you've got to be more deliberate with it. So have a go at that, and then the same for the rocky base. Really, it looks like it may have been sort of shaded with something, but again, you can go back in. You can add some more interest to it, whether it's sort of little rocks, pebbles, a skull or two for a demonic-looking beastie like this. Just to try to sand grain or something like that makes it look a little bit more interesting. So yeah, it's not terribly like advanced feedback, but I hope it helps you in some way, Patrick. And see what Matt's got to say.
Yeah. I mean, the trickiest thing about painting displacer beasts is that they're always 5 feet away from where they look like they are. But that probably makes it a bit tricky to get your brush in the right place. I think it looks pretty good in terms of it's a body for your D&D campaign or whatever. It's a pretty like displacer beasts are pretty. They're not like super interesting in terms of their color schemes. A lot of times people add stuff like purple or like greenish shadows to them just to make them not be because they're just black cats basically. Um, the couple of things that would definitely kind of kick it up a little bit, like you can see the face is nice, the way you have the teeth and like the mouth is pink. You got those kind of like greeny eyes that are shining or yellowy eyes shining out of it. The like pseudopod like teeth on its tentacles things. It would probably look kind of cool if you painted that like pink first and then did the white over it, so it looks like it's gums, like it's their teeth, so it's got like the inside of the mouth kind of feel. And then the same on the ears, because the ears look just a bit like you want to have a little bit of pink in there before the fur starts to shine through. And then on the base, I think like I I generally prefer to go all the way to the edge. So like you could use sand or whatever, and you could put a bit of it up onto the base, or you could use modeling putty of some sort to like extend this rocky texture. But I mean, if that's the way you're doing them, that's fine. And yeah, I don't know why WizKids prime their minis, but like it's a complete waste of time because you have to take all the mold lines off them and then prime them again. So just ignore the fact that they are primed and carry on with your life. I think would be the
They
best
come
best
primed,
advice
do
I can
they?
give you there.
Do they come
Yeah,
primed?
I don't get it. Yeah, they
Oh, I
come
didn't know
primed.
that. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's bad.
uh,
That's bad from
but
them, then, isn't it? Really?
yeah, it just doesn't make any sense at all. You're just like you have to like, and they're like fairly soft plastic from what I remember. So like, it's an advantage if you don't care what your model's going to look like at the end, but
Yeah.
then where you paint it. So I don't know. And like they come primed in like light gray. Like if this thing was primed black, or maybe this one is primed black, but like at least that would make sense for the figure. But like, I don't know. Anyway, that's on them. Thanks a million for submitting, Patrick. Hopefully that was useful to you. Then we've got Francis James Lopez painting the Witch King from, I was about to say Mortal Kombat. That's how tired I am. From World of Warcraft, obviously, Arthas. Uh, yeah, he's pretty cool looking. I really, really like the glowing eye you have on the dragon head he's standing on. That's that dragon that he kills at whatever that level it is in Warcraft 3. Um, it's like almost like crystalline looking, and the way his eyes are like also glowing, and they're kind of like the brightest white on the figure itself. I also like how you've got this kind of like it's like blood, but it's in all the creases, but so it gives this kind of like blue to red transition that breaks up some of the area, which is nice. Um, and then the backdrop is really cool as well. I love like the kind of like skyscape you've got in behind him. One of the issues that I have with it, which again is probably more of a problem for photos than in person, but because you have so much of this blue in the figure and in the terrain and the backdrop, it kind of like blends into the background a little bit. And then the way he's like spattered with snow as well, that really breaks up the overall outline of the figure and makes it harder to read, um, like just on at a glance. Like you'll notice in like films, the actors have like snow on them. It's always like here and here, and like in particular locations that kind of frame them, not necessarily in a realistic way that snow would fall on you. Um, and you can even tell, like, when it changes from the wide shots, that they'll have snow falling on them, but then in a close up shot, the snow is in different places and stuff because they just want it to look good. So just have a think about that if you're doing this kind of like snowy effect. Like, having patches of white throughout the whole figure acts similar to camouflage, where you have like patches of color and it breaks up the outline and makes it a little bit harder to read. Um, but yeah, I think it's a really nice looking like piece though, and I'd say a lot of that just vanishes as soon as you have the actual 3D figure in your hand. It's definitely really recreating that scene from the game immediately. Like I knew exactly what this was and where it's from, and it's nicely presented on the plinth, and I like the way it's kind of like standing out from the background as well. So great work. Hopefully that was helpful to you, and Jim will have a bit more to add.
Yeah, I agree. This very very cool. This is one of my favorite expansions of the game. I spent a lot of time in Ice Crown Citadel beating the bejesus out of this guy. So yeah, instantly recognizable. Exciting actually to see him because you don't see many Warcraft models anywhere, let alone here.
Yeah.
So very very cool. Um, Rendered very very nicely. I think that the blue background also is a little bit lost. I mean, I think it's like the army of the undead that's behind him. You said, and then some birds. But I thought like one way you could possibly get around the two sort of blending together is swap that background out for just one of Ice Crown Citadel, which is a lot more of like a moody blue and a lot more grey. And darker tones in it rather than like the bright blue because that blue is a lot brighter than the blue that's on him, and then you've got a lot of sort of paler brighter blue and a lot more snow as well below him. So he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place as far as attention is concerned. So I would maybe suggest trying to swap out the background for a darker one and see how that helps. But also like as I said a minute ago, there's an awful lot of snow down here. So, and I think Matt said as well about how the snow is placed on him. So perhaps next time you're doing something like this, be a little bit more selective about how it's put in, because it's probably accurate that it would be everywhere all of the time because that area of land was just a frozen wasteland. So of course you're going to be covered in snow. But it just detracts away from the figure a little bit, and as an artistic piece, it just needs to be suggestive of the environment that he's in, and that's enough. So yeah, I think that was pretty much all I had. Other than the fact that with the ice, the ice blue, I think this is a much better tone of blue. This is nice, but if you look at the actual, I mean, you said you did have a reference for it, and I had a quick look again just to remind myself, and nearly subscribed to a Game Pass again, I must admit, but I managed to refrain from doing it. It's fun. We're on what War Within or something now. I haven't played that one yet. So anyway, yes, I digress. I love this game. I'm so excited about it. Yeah, this tone of blue I think isn't quite as good against the reference photos as this tone of blue, but I get why you'd want to kind of differentiate them a little bit. But I think if you had a little bit more of this teal tone up towards some of the highlights on him, that would help, and then just reserve this sort of deeper deeper blue for like more shaded areas. But there's a lot going on with this model, and I could understand immediately if you didn't want to do that. But it's just my initial thoughts on it. So yeah, great model, brilliantly executed, lovely display piece. Love it, great stuff. Thank you very much for sharing. Moving up to ordinary molasses with some sort of Terminator captain or something here. You're very welcome, and sorry you couldn't find that. I looked afterwards as well, and I couldn't find it either, which is very annoying. So I don't know what happened
there. I think
there.
it got taken down by Games Workshop
Again, because I know that happened once, didn't it? He
well, it was only meant to be up temporarily, and then they said like, you can leave it up or whatever, and then I assume some legal person went.
Actually, no, you need to take it down now. Yeah,
that's what happened.
So it makes sense. But glad you found another one from this ledge as well. Squidmar's got some really good ones as well. So yeah, there's a plethora of other options. That was just my favourite one. Pity it's gone. So basically, without reading the whole lot, that's a lot for me to read. I'm not going to read all of it, but basically going for a grimdark sort of theme to it. So any tips on improving that? Wanted to make the sword a bit of a focus, and then using the heat of the sword to burn away the blood that was on it. And then any other general feedback, basically, I think. So so it's definitely got a grimdark feel to it. I like it. It's got that kind of grainy sort of texture on. So however you've got the paint applied there, I think that's a success. There are a couple of areas though where just dialing it back a little bit would help it to read as what it is. So one example of that, I think this is where you were talking about you've done some damage on the armor and then tried to do a slash on the face, but it didn't work out or whatever. So I think like the way that this little shield plate here on his chest has been damaged is just a little bit over, because it's kind of muddying what's there. So maybe a little bit overboard on this section, but like how it's been done on the shoulder pads and on the leg armor and on this shoulder plate on this side, the white and red one, that's looking better. That's very cool. So I think the battering of the armor is nice. You could maybe just deepen some of the recesses a little. No, sorry, not recesses. The shaded areas a little bit more, where they're like really, really tight up inside. Just go a little bit darker with these. What you've done with the lightning is really cool. You've used a nice fine grade of copper wire or something there, so that's pretty damn successful, I'd say. Just be careful with the super glue next time. It's tricky as hell to do this, but like you've got some blobs. Face. Oh, here's that. Oh, I didn't see this one before. Yes. Okay, that's all news to me. Yeah, there's like blob of super glue. Like we're kind of aware that it's there, if you know what I mean. So yeah, just try and use a smaller amount next time. I rather than put it on the sword or on the thing, I put the super glue on like a your not your palette, sorry, on like a ceramic, on a plate, or a ramekin or something, and then just dip the wire in it and then just hold it on, rather than trying to apply the glue to the sword, because it'll just be too much every single time. So try that next time if you didn't already. So what else to say? Great work with the freehands and weathering them up. On the purity seals and such, they all look really good. The metals look nice, although you could pick out some edges on some of them a little bit more deliberately, I think. The weathered and rusty base looks really cool. I like that. Then for the sword, oh yeah, great work on the cape as well. This was some of the freehand I found impressive as well. So good job with the ultramarine motifs there. So with the sword, yeah, kind of goes. Although if that's blood, what I would say is it kind of sells better with blood if it's not covering the entire blade and effectively painting it red. That might happen, yes. But to make it read better or easier, sorry, because this kind of just looks like a red sword. Is it turning into a red sword from a blue, or is it turning into a blue sword from a red? Do you see what I mean? So if you painted it um, slightly less blood on it, so some of the blue blade is showing through underneath it, I think it would help sell it a bit better. And then also get your glue out again and put some what do you call it, dental floss. So you can stick a little bit of dental floss on the edge of the blade, drip some glue down it, then paint it with blood for the blood guard. Boom, you've got a very quick and easy blood drop coming off. Just helps it read again more as blood. But I think what you've done for like the burning away of the blood, I think that actually sells quite well. It would just look a little bit better, I feel, if you had some of the blade showing through to help it sell, as that's what it is. And then the only other thing I had was with the metals, try and bully some more shadows into them, because they're a little bit sort of based, shaded, highlighted, and there's not, because you've used TMMs, there's not enough shadow contrast in the metals. So try and push some more, like treat it as like an NMM technique, and use matte paints to push them in. The shoulder pads look better from the top, but like the iron halo isn't quite as striking, and neither are these plates like from the side. They look good from the front, but when you look at them from the side, it's a lot flatter. Do you see what I mean? So you need to be a bit more deliberate with how you push those shadows up to the top there, and then bring the highlight color down to this rim, and then obviously have the highest point at the top. That would look really, really cool. But yeah, really, really nice stuff overall. So thank you for sharing. This made me laugh. I will pass you over to Matt now for more.
Yeah, he's a nice looking guy. Sword is super cool looking. I didn't, like Jim said, like the blood splatter would look better with blood splatter, and you want to have as well a little bit of bright red in there, because blood obviously it's very dark, but when you spread it out, it gets brighter because it's so heavily pigmented. It's kind of like Coca Cola, it looks black, but it's actually like reddish brown kind of thing. Uh, so yeah, having like splatches of like bright red in amongst the dark red would look really good. But I kind of like, to me, it looks like the sword was like, because it's all solid, it looks like it was like rusted away. And then when he activated it, it like burned off all the corrosion. Kind of like, if you've ever seen those like laser cleaning things.
Mm.
So I thought that was pretty cool, to be honest with you. And then on the face, I would just be careful with. I like the way he's got this like 5 o'clock shadow kind of thing going on, but it's a little bit heavy up in his eyebrows. It almost looks like he got like boxed in the face, and he's got like a black eye. Just like reduce the area for the eyebrow, like you could like in proportional to the face kind of thing. And then it looks a little bit like it's gone up onto his nose, maybe a little bit as well. But that's just to do with cleanliness and stuff. But I think it's really cool looking. Grimdark, definitely nicely weathered, lots of little details to be found. Looks pretty much perfect for, like I said, Space Hulk captain kind of thing. So great work. Thanks for submitting. Hope we see you again in the future. Now we've got another spaceman, Alessandro, submitting this like Legio Damnatorum. Is that what they're called? The dudes with the Scullier armor, and the flames. Ghost Riders. They're little Ghost Riders. He's really cool. Obviously, I assume converted from like a normal Marine. and in that classic black with like all the flames coming out look to it. I really like the way, you still have the volumes of the black armor that we can see what's going on in like the backpack and the back leg. That's kind of like has this ambient light that's picking it out, making it look a bit grayer. The flames look amazing, especially like in around the feet where there's like cracks in the ground and they're like coming out of them. And the way they're casting light up onto the armor, then like discoloring it into red, and then in around the skull, there's this like really aggressive, like painterly kind of shadows and texture to the skull, which I really like. I kind of wonder with the flames, because the reason why they look so good near the ground is because it's like under the ground is like where it's at its hottest, and then the flames are like billowing out of there, and there's a little skull in one of them. That's super cool. Um, but like on the sword and on bits of his armor, the flames are more obviously kind of like just stuck on or whatever. Like they're like I don't know if they're green stuffed on or but they're kind of protruding from the surface. It isn't like the surface is on fire, if that makes sense. Like because if it was like if you covered it in petrol, it would have like a really thin layer under the flames be coming out. So I was wondering if it would be cool to have, say, like on his shin pad where he's got like this plume of flame coming out, if there was like a crack in his shin pad, and then you could paint that like the brightest color again, so it looks like he's completely full of fire from the inside, and like those are like the flames like wicking out and igniting when they get out into the air. Um, but like it's a real classic look, so it's hard for me to kind of take a feedback sort of really on it. I think probably the part of the flames that sells the least is the muzzle flare from the gun, because I don't think they look like that. Like I don't think muzzle flares like it's an explosion. I think they're just yellow, more or less. And I mean, you wouldn't really even see them that much. I don't think it's like like a muzzle flare is a cool effect to have on, but given that you've got all these flames there already, I don't think it's strictly necessary. And then it's a bit like it's differently shaped than all the flames, so it's painted in the same way, if that makes sense. But again, like, I don't know, and it's still cool looking. So, yeah, that's that. Don't know if I gave you any actual feedback there. I think it's a cool looking model. Jim, you might do a better job.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a chapter of Marines that look all flaming and stuff. They surely would be filthy warp heretics if there were, but I don't know if any. But he's got like skulls in his pauldron, so I don't know if it's like a chapter of flaming ones. But I've struggled with it as well, like because some of it looks like it's sculpt. It's actually printed that way, like a flaming sword. I don't know if it's an upgrade kit or something or what, but it was really really cool idea. I don't think I've ever. Obviously, we've seen Ghost Rider a million times. People painting that like the flaming bike. So parts of this, as Matt said, work really 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 well. Uh, and some parts need some more refinement to bring it up to that level. So things that look the best are the head. So yay, thanks for that. Always best if the head looks the best. And then the ones on the floor. Also, I agree. These are the best looking ones. And it's to do with the amount of red I think that's in the flames. So these ones have got a lot less red in them. It's just towards the very tippy tips. And then like where you go to the sword, and this flame here, there's a lot more red in it. So if you were to bring the whole spectrum back more towards like the orange and the yellow as we're getting up here, and just leave the very tips as some people put black at the end of the flames, and I don't think it's ever necessary to go that bad. It looks like you've done a very tiny bit of brown, and that's all I use, to be honest. And I think some of the best flames I've ever seen just like go down to a very ruddy brown, not black at the end. But yeah, I just pull this red back towards the end of the flames a bit more. The OSL effect from them is mostly really good. I think it's just a matter of smoothness on the armor, just smoothing the blends out, and there's the same for the black armor. It looks like you've kind of sketched it in, and then it's just ready to be refined now. So I mean, I don't know if this is for the table or display or taking it to a comp or whatever. So forgive me. Next time, give us some words so we can a bit of a guide. But yeah, if you wanted to improve the black armor, I think you've done a great job laying out the volumes for it and picking out edges. But yeah, just refining, smoothing That would look really, really cool. And then the same goes for the OSL as well. In some places, it's a bit abrupt where you change between the tones, but like where you've put the reflections, where the shadows have gone, like this centerpiece here looks really good. On this leg plate here, that looks good. You could maybe just bring the highlight up a little bit where it faces the flame. But yeah, on the ground here, amazing OSL. Up the top here, amazing OSL. So yeah, a lot of it is right. It's just kind of there's a little bit of disparity between different areas and being different qualities on it. But overall, yeah, really cool concept and executed very nicely. So thank you very much for that, Alessandro, and we'll see you next time. Okay, Big Mork with Not an Orc. And we've got this little Moodeng Champion of Corn ting, which is probably my favourite sub of this month, to be honest. It's so dinky and doinky, and I think he's great. So he's gone for a brighter tone for NMM, greenish brown to get the brass, trying out verdigris instead of rust. So further opinion on shiny purple skin, the weathering NMM, and the red armor. And then tips on painting blood using regular acrylics. Where do we start? We start with the red, I think. I think it's good. I think it could be a little bit more contrasting in the shadows. So just another layer, just a little bit more shade in some. It doesn't have to be everywhere, but just pick some places just to give it that depth for the red. But other than that, yeah, it's vibrant and it's bright and it's good. And I like the borderland style as well. And the way you've really, I think you're really nailing now this black edging thing. Some of the earlier ones we saw, they were really, really heavy, but your brush control is improving, and it must. I've never tried to paint like this, but I guess it must be really difficult to know when to stop as well, like when you're doing weathering. So yeah, I think you're mastering this now. It's looking really, really, really impressive. So well done. The purple skin, I wouldn't change at all. I think that's brilliant. You've got just the right level of contrast. It's not a big shiny metal or anything, so it's not going to be like incredibly high contrast. I think there's plenty of that there. You can see what's going on. The structures are there. Everything is. No, I don't want to switch. Yeah, sorry, distracted. I think it's perfect. I'd leave the purple skin as it is. The eyes for me, I know you didn't ask about it, is a very, very dark brown and then a black pupil. Right, I can see it. I can see better on the computer screen. Yeah, maybe just a few flecks of like iris color. Just like vertically out from the pupil, just a slightly brighter brown, just to give it a little bit more life in the eye. How you got that so perfectly round is impressive as well. This life light, very, very good. NMM, verdigris, great success. The bronze tones, great success. I would push the highlights higher though, give it some shine, baby. A little bit brighter, and then also you could push the shadows in some areas. Don't do it on every single panel and facet. I don't think that's necessary. But yeah, I think that's a great success all round. And then finally, the regular acrylics, painting blood. So I'm a bit confused by that. I cheat. I just do what everybody does. I think it counts. Surely you've heard of it though. And let's just buy a pot of blood for the blood god and just take that out of the pot and put it where you want it. It's the best looking thing. I don't know if you mean like using normal acrylics like red paints, but you need it to be glossy, you need it to be red, and if it's really, really fresh and proper gory, then you want to stipple in some black with it as well when it's still wet, because it's so dark sometimes, especially like life blood. If you like struck an organ or something, it can be really, really, really dark, like almost black. So stippling black in really, really helps. So yeah, if you've got the right sort of mix of reds and gloss varnish, and then getting some black stippled in there, that could work just as well, I suppose, as blood for the blood god. But to be honest, I don't see why you'd want to do that when the perfect product, in my opinion anyway, already exists, and it's incredibly cheap, and it lasts for ages, and it's bloody fun, and just do that. So yeah, But I think the blood on this does look good anyway. So yeah, great success, Big Meg. Thank you very much, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely adorable. Um, yeah, super awesome. What do I even have to say about this? Yeah, the red is cool. Uh, I like the way it's a bit more like pastelly and like a little bit of the orange spectrum. If you were doing actual corn, you would want this to be more serious looking and more like, you know, cherry red as well. But I think it looks spot on for that. I like the brass kind of tone for the armor. I would put more shadow into the spikes in the back in particular. Like they're very conical. They look kind of like it reminds you of Bowser from Mario. Um, but if these are meant to be brass, they have to have triangular shadows. Like just look up primitive cone, like a cone. Look up a model of a cone. Like cones have a very particular way of reflecting. It looks like you've done it in a couple of places, but not everywhere. Like all the faces that face down should have this kind of triangular shadow area on them. Or the faces that are to the sides of a triangular shadow area, and the sides that part that faces down has a mid-tone, like a bounce light type of thing.
Yeah.
But that's only a small bit of it. And the way I do blood is I actually just use for like blood splatter and stuff. I'll do like nocturnal red from Vallejo and mix it down with lots of water and like put that over the whole area really roughly, and then go back with like a neat mix of that and put it on again, and then go back with a bright red and put that on again. And that gives you kind of the idea of like it's not a river of blood, although you are doing a river of blood. But if you wanted something like, if someone was hacking someone up and they got splattered with blood and some of it is dried in and some of it is soaked in and some of it's been like smeared off and stuff, I find just using just a couple of like a dark red and then like a pyrrole red just for like the last couple of little dabs on it. That tends to work pretty well as well. Just be erratic and think about how it would actually happen. I did a wonderful course in a or course class in America with this lovely lady who basically she just did it was like looking up blood splatter analysis, like actual CSI blood splatter analysis, and then being like, so you have to put your mini. If something's hit really hard and fast, you'll get high velocity blood splatter, which is small flecks that are widely distributed. Whereas if someone's been like stabbed, you'll get like a leaking, and then you'll get pooling at the bottom where it's like dripped off. Uh, Probably you don't want to Google that. Depending on
Dexter
where you
coming
are,
round.
but yeah, they'll be looking for you. But yeah, you can totally do it with just normal red paints, and then just use darker paint to show that it's like kind of clotted or where it's thicker, and then you can gloss varnish it as well if you want that kind of river of blood kind of look. And thanks a million for submitting. Absolutely brightened up our days. Tomas Spite, painting OSL. That's pretty much it. Did it work? Yes. Good job. You painted the OSL. The man looks like he is OSL and yeah, I really like it. There is what did I say? I really like the way you've got like obviously the green light coming sort of from below, and the way it transitions. Then you have like a fairly soft like Terminator, where it goes to the kind of like dark pink and then to the pink on the far side of the arms. I think that's really good. Uh, I really like the way you've called it the skulls as well. Like they are much more showing the OSL than the like wooden wheel because they're white and that makes sense. And they're all different as well because they're the angle that they're on, shows like relative to the light where the light would be hitting them. So I think that's really good. Um, the kind of wheel on the back looks. I mean, it's the back of the bust, so maybe I don't care. But it just has much more really general lighting to it. It seems like it should be much darker than this, given that he's like mostly being like he's kind of dark from behind, if that makes sense. Whereas the wheel isn't really like, especially the underside bits in here, they could just be darker. But whatever. If the purpose of this is to practice your OSL, it's the front bit that we care about. Um, face slightly different. What does that mean? What does it mean when I write that? Yeah, I think the way you did his face, I like the way it's like very well lit. I think this kind of like nose piece he has going on is presenting an issue for you because like his face is lit much stronger to here, and then his forehead isn't. And I'm like, I don't really know why. And it's like you've done these kind of like, so you've done this. It's like the light is coming from below him, right? But he's looking down into it a bit. But because that nose piece is there, you wanted to have like bright, and then you wanted to go dark, and then have it bright again on the other side. Which that is normal because you have like that kind of corner bone thing turning here in his forehead. But then his face doesn't do that. Like his face is all lit up. Like the whole frontal plane of his face is lit up. So I don't know why this part of his forehead isn't lit up. And it can't be from his like face casting a shadow because then this bit of his forehead is lit up, if that makes sense. So basically the way you painted his forehead looks more like he is lit from above. If you're lit from above, you get like this highlight along here and then in the sides. But the way he painted his face is he's lit from like straight on or there. And I think part of that is because really the highlight, it should have a super bright highlight along his nose because that gold thing, but then you won't have the contrast between that and the dark around it. And I think you kind of tried to make it work by going like dark here and then bright again, but that's not necessarily how the light would work in that situation. But it's a big ask to have like a face with a gold nose thing on it, like he's in the video for fucking Bad Romance. Um, and have OSL reflected up onto that, and for you to be like, how would the green interact with the gold as well as his flesh and all that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't beat yourself up on it. The only other thing I thought was that didn't sell super well on the OSL was the belt buckle again down here. Doesn't look super metallic. It should have that metallic stripe across it, just to show that it's more shiny. But generally, like it's really really good looking OSL. Like I like to the fact that from the front we can still tell he has like a pink skin tone, but there's green light up on it rather than him just looking green is actually something that's really hard to sell because it's like an illusion thing where like this guy is green, but we know he is not green, and you have that like captured perfectly. So I'd say maybe you're not that bad at OSL. Jim?
Yeah, it's a very very tricky thing, and you've done a rather bloody good job, I would say. Very smooth highlights, mostly I'd say like 80% of the time, 85% of the time, the light's reacting as you kind of expect. Um, for me, the best OSL is on the skulls. Those look absolutely perfect, incredible. Um, not quite as good. But this area down here for me is scoring very, 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 very high. Then as you get further away from the light, though, it's kind of the same intensity that's in his face. In fact, even there's some highlights that are brighter in his face than that white down here. So I think these should be more aggressively highlighted. Like these, I mean, you've gone for it, but it's very, very, very little. So I think you need to increase the amount of like extreme highlights, and then also when you get up to the face. Well, I don't know if you saw, I did it a second ago. I just took this lamp here and shined it up at me from that, and that is really close to my face. And you haven't got that highlight across here or down here, which you've got on your guy. So when you sort of move it further away, God, it makes it look awful. Never mind. I wish I was as handsome as him. So like you get this, you were right to put this area in shadow because the eyebrows are actually shading it, but I'm not getting a super bright highlight at the top. So if you're going to do a highlight there, I would say that needs to be more of your like your zenithal highlight. This kind of flavor here. I'm going to move that away now because I look terrible. But you see what I mean. And then the other thing for like this, I'm guessing that was silver, is silver, and it's gone green. But then this metal here has got absolutely no interaction with the green light whatsoever. So this needs to have some in as well, even if it was just in the shady parts. And again, you're telling us that this section is affected by the green light, but this section, which is facing both downward and upward at the same time, neither of those is catching the green light, but this is. So there is a big challenge. So I think what you need to do, like to pretty much perfect this, is to like cut the OSL effect at kind of like halfway up his forehead. That is going to give you a little bit of a challenge when you come to highlighting the rest of the areas up here, which is sort of the darker green, which kind of makes sense because if it's stopped affecting that, then it should stop affecting all this as well. So it does start to get rather complicated. The other option, of course, would be to integrate that green into this reflective metal piece that's on his nose. And the way I think that you've done the wood is stunning, just absolutely brilliant. Even though, like the one on the back, it's just like that's just immense wood grain texture and tonality. It's just gorgeous. So immense, immense. Even though it's the back, and it's not integrating with the light in any way. Sorry, the green light in any way. That is just stellar work on the wood, man. Nice one. So yeah, I hope all that helps and it hasn't become too convoluted and horrible. But yeah, stunning piece, and thank you for submitting it. Please come again and tell your friends. Okay, moving up to Harry, looking for general feedback. Anything from cleanliness, light placement, basing to NMM. Thought to go all NMM. This is not too much on it. This was started out as a gaming piece, but then ended up pushing it further because I just enjoyed painting it. I feel you. That happens to me quite a lot. So yeah, these guys are really small as well. So this is very impressive. Very, very impressive. The smoothness of it, the contrast that's in it, the detail, like I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna zoom right in to that lens. That is just beautiful. And then there's a gem as well down on the ankle. Like, how did you even do that, man? So impressive. And on the gun as well. These tiny gems, and they're all like the same level of quality as well. It's not just I nailed one of them and the rest of the is by his feet. It doesn't matter. Like the level of detail in it is super stunning. So awesome. What I would kind of draw attention to it is very, very dark. And I'm not big on my Eldari lore, but I kind of had the feeling of, would this be cool if it was less kind of shaded? It's almost like 50% of it is like really deep shadow. So, and it might be the pictures, so you might have to forgive me, but obviously it might just be because you painted it in a low light, because it looks like from the back you've got like this purple tone, which is like cold shadow, and there's no edge highlights picked up. So, but then the ground isn't lit like that at all. That's just like ordinary zenithal. So I was a bit confused as to what it might just be because it's the back of the model, and who cares? Not quite sure. But these are the things. These are the questions which are arising. NMM wise, I didn't really. I think that like the bits around the gems, yeah, they sell. That's all good. The muzzle, perfect muzzle burn on there. Browns through to purple, through to blue, bit of black on the tip, and then this like bronzy whatever. It's Eldari. Who cares? Who knows? Sorry, who knows what sort of metal that is? Very, very cool. I didn't really see much else apart from those. I'm not sure what material the actual weapon is supposed to be. So if that's supposed to be metal, then I guess that doesn't sell quite as well because it doesn't have the same level of reflection as like the brooches and the muzzle do. Was it Wraithbone or something they call it? So I don't know if it's actually. It's like it looks more like a bony type thing. That's pretty much all I got. I don't think that's supposed to be metal, so please ignore my inane ramblings. So yeah, anything else? No. That was it. Oh, the black. You could maybe do something a little bit more with like the black barrel. It kind of looks a little bit flat compared to the rest of it. So maybe some very basic, like glazing up or dry brushing or something. Just pick out edges. Yeah, really, really cool. And again, especially at this scale, beautiful work. So thank you very much, Harry. Over to you, Matt.
Yeah, super nicely painted. I'd agree with Jim on the barrel. Even just around these kind of like eggs. Eldar love having eggs stuck to everything. So he's got these egg things on the bottom of the barrel. And if you had like a highlight and then a shadow beside them just to differentiate them from the barrel. Because obviously we can see they're very nice forms, and the light is interacting with them in real life. But just to show, even if you wanted to be like, oh, it's a matte black barrel, like having that kind of dome is going to create like a shadow, and then as it protrudes out, it'll be like a little highlight as it wicks around. And then the only other thing I was going to say was on the reverse side, where it's all very cool and dark. Might be nice to have like a cold edge highlight on some things, like as if he's being lit from behind by like the light from the sky, or he's in a canyon and there's like this kind of bluish or colder light, and just pull out some of the edges on the reverse side just with like a grayish tone or whatever. I think that would just kind of kick that side of it up a notch and really sell that idea of him being like, because he is warm from the front and cold from behind. But it's kind of more that it is the ambient light from behind isn't creating as much, like it still create highlights relatively on the reverse side. You can kind of see a bit of it on the gun barrel, but like on his armor, like that like edge across his back and some of his shoulder pads, just to have like an actual edge highlight in there, I think would look really nice. But it looks really nice as it is. So thanks for submitting. Hopefully that was of help to you. Christian Savarda painted this harpy lady, I'm guessing, for a photo for a competition. Very good. Impressions on the photo. Yeah, it's actually remarkable how good, much better the first photo looks than the other ones, if that makes sense. Like, obviously, that's like a real photo. You put a lot of prep and everything into it for the competition. Uh, but cameras aren't like your eyes. They don't have the dynamic range that you have. So when you try and make it dark, you start losing highlights. When you try and make it bright, you start losing shadows. Because they don't adjust in real time like the way your eyes do. So it's hard to capture in one photo, you know, all that range without losing anything. And that's just the way it is. Like, the photo is never going to be as good as the real thing. Sometimes it can be better because they also don't have as good resolution as your eyes. It can make your blends look nicer, which is what I rely on. But no, I understand your pain, but I think this photography looks quite nice. Um, what needs the most work? All right, so I think it looks like I like your tone, your skin tone. It could probably have a bit more range to it in terms of, because it's a like largely naked woman. So, people's shoulders aren't the exact same tone as their thighs. Yeah, so she could be like paler in places and things like that. I think you have nice shadows in the appropriate areas and stuff. And you have the lips and the eyes pulled out really well, but just a little bit more like just some, when you have like, say, around like her, where her leg starts growing feathers, you could like glaze in some like green or purple there as it goes up to it, because you wouldn't have this like sudden stark transition, like like I have hair growing out here, but there's like stubble growing out there, that kind of thing can cook things up a lot with just a very small amount of work, just some like random little glazes of colors all around the skin. And then I like the amount of contrast you have going on. Like, you've got a lot of contrast in that green, and then it contrasts itself well with the kind of like orangier and purple tones that you have in the rest of the figure. I think it might be nice though to have a bit more hue contrast in the green. Like, if it looks like it tends a little bit towards yellow in the highlights. It could go a little bit more, I think, especially in like the knees. I think the wings have a better run on them. And then you could go into like a little bit of purple for your shadows, because it just gives more, or blue, just gives more vibrancy to the piece. It still will look green overall, but it'll just have a bit more punch to it. And it kind of makes sense if you look at birds' feathers, they often have this iridescence thing going on where even though they look one color, they actually refract the light and give all these different colors as well. Um, and then I thought the hair, I like that her hair is purple, but I thought the highlight placement on it was a bit kind of haphazard. So the way highlighting hair works is you want to highlight, think of it like an S shape, and anywhere where it goes out, you highlight like the most outward piece, and anywhere it goes in, you highlight the most inward piece. You kind of like have some strands that are kind of like highlighted the whole way down. You want to have it like, so when it comes out of your head, it's going to flop over and it's highlighted here. And then when it gets down here, it's going to wrap around and it's highlighted there. Um, and that'll help sell the idea that it's like shiny and glossy. Whereas it looks a little bit right now like she has like her fringe dyed a different color, if that makes sense, than like the rest of her hair, because it's like substantially more kind of like pinky purple there. Um, but it's still a good look. Like I think that's a cool way of doing it. You could even darken it up more so it looks like she has like black hair, but it like goes up to purple. And I like as well, I really like the kind of muted tones that you've used for like the scales and the feet for all these other bits, where they still look kind of interesting, but they're not drawing our attention away from the most important parts of the figure. So I think that was a really clever use of color there. Jim, do you want to finish this up for the night?
Yes, but I haven't got too much more to add after that. To be fair, it was pretty comprehensive. I love how you've kept the attention up here, like using the atmospheric lighting. I think that's been very, very, very successful. I do think you could maybe push highlights a little bit more in the face, because I feel like her chest and like shoulder area, that's flesh, is brighter than what's up on her face. So I think you could, yeah, just bump that up a little bit. That would be nice. But great skin tones. Really, really, really beautiful skin tones. We're loving all that. I think I agree with Matt about the run of greens in the feathers as well. So you've got the structure of them really, really nice. I think you just need to refine them a little bit because they're a bit sort of. I mean, I get it. There's a lot of feathers, man. There's an awful lot of feathers to paint there, but it's kind of some edges. It's the top that's got the bright bit, and then it's the bottom bit that's got the bright bit there, and then you've got sort of, it's the top there, and then it's kind of half of the top here, and you know what I mean. It's a little bit scratchy where these sort of highlights are. So I think if you just refined like the wing highlighting, it's a lot of work, I know. And this, I love this blue, like this turquoise, like this tealy tone you've got on the underside. It's a shame that you've only got like one, like highly, high quality picture of it, and the others are kind of, just ambient. But it looks like this teal. If there's a bit more of that in in these wings up here, I think that would look really cool as well. Um, and then the only other thing really that I had was on the base. So the floor itself, I I think these are tufts, right? These are foliage of some sort that's down here. I think you need a little bit of green down on the base, really, because you've got all of the green and the blue up here, and then down here it's all kind of red and orange and yellow. So I don't. I get that she's killed this hog, and she's kind of like oopsie, but they're not kind of. I think it would settle a little bit better if there was a little bit of green down on the base. Basically, I don't think there's any space to get on like orange or red up here. That wouldn't look a little bit strange. So, and they are nice, complementary colours. It's all good. I just think there needs to be a little bit more balance between up here and down there. But other than that, this has been a like highly critical because you said competition, and that's what you get. But I think, like on the whole, it is really bloody beautiful piece. I love the texture that you've got in the skulls. That was another thing I wanted to point out. You've done a really marvelous job. It's so easy with skulls just to go, there's a bone color and there's a wash and then here's some highlight and that's done. But you've actually put some like texture in there and used some other tone, like grey tones and stuff in there. So that's really, really nice. The subtle blood effect as well, coming out the spearhead as well and running down to like her foot. It's the only glossy thing on the whole model. Everything else is matted down beautifully and separated nicely, cleanly. The NMM's a great success as well on the bands. You've got this highlight running down like the length of the forearm, like uniformly across it. That's really nice on both of them. Yeah, so really, really, really beautiful piece overall. And good luck with the competition. Let us know how you get on, and please come again in the future, Christian. Thank you very much. And that's us, Matt.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone for submitting. Hopefully that was helpful constructive feedback to you. We'll see you in January for the next video. So enjoy all of the days that happen between now and then.
And Merry Christmas.